Recording and cue title music. Welcome, Internet, to
Internet.
TIG Radio
Yay.
number 4. I believe it's number 4, the weekly radio show about independent game development. We do air this live. If you are listening to the archive, we have an after show where we basically stay on the air and get more drunk but stop recording. So if you are listening to the archives, try to catch us live at 6 p.m. PST. And if you live in Europe and that's like 4 in the morning, then you should probably move to Canada.
Nice. Busted.
So our show this week, we're moving away from the IGF stuff for a week because all the IGF finalists are cramming for their final build deadline.
This is true.
Yeah, Tommy's been sleeping like 30 minutes a night or something. So the show today will be a show about community in game development, not necessarily the independent game development community, but how do you as a developer maintain your own community of fans? So to that effect, we have two guests today. We have Andy Moore, who manages several communities, and then John Graham from Wolfire, who manages the Overgrowth community. Before we get there, a couple housekeeping items. We do have a Twitter and Facebook page. We post our guests sort of ahead of time. Today, I think we posted it today. That's facebook.com/tigradio or twitter.com/tigradio. And we are also soliciting audio essays from our listeners. So if you have a killer blog post rant or forum rant that you would like to transform to audio essay format, just record a 3 to 5 minute MP3 or OGG Vorbis or WMA or some other format and email it to us. You can email us at hello@tigradio.com. So today we have an audio essay from Dan McDonald. It's a name that's probably not ringing out for all you young hoppers. Sorry,
Oh, idiots.
watching too much Wire. But Dan's been around since the early days of Dexterity/Indie Gamer, and he's going to share his thoughts with us.
Hi, I'm Dan McDonald, and today I want to talk about the ingredients for starting a successful indie game development company. And I want to base my understanding of those ingredients on my own experience, which is how to start a company, build a game, and still not succeed. So we started out with what I thought were really great ingredients for a successful startup company. The first thing we had was we had two really good developers. Myself and a friend of mine who I've worked with for the past 15 years on hobby and independent projects, off and on. There was another friend who we had both worked with at a previous employer who was a really good business development guy, really good sales guy, contracts guy, negotiations guy, all that stuff. And he had a friend who was an entrepreneur and had a lot of experience with operations, revenue models, cash flow, and stuff like that. And on top of all that, we had enough money to pay the two developers, myself and my longtime friend, for 2 full months of development. So we concocted this great strategy for how we would make this work, and we had a bunch of different revenue models that we were going to use. In the short term, we had contacts with large area employers, and we wanted to get some of our friends who were looking for work staffed out at these places and make a profit off the hours they were working there and use that to fund us in the short term while we landed contracts with other area businesses who wanted stuff for mobile devices. We were making an iPhone game. And the long-term strategy was to have our products support us indefinitely because they were so good and they made so much money in the marketplace that we could just continue to do our game development long-term and not have to worry about the other revenue models. So in the end, we weren't successful for a lot of reasons, but one of the things that I wanted to share from that experience was talk about the real ingredients that I see, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but just some of the things that really resonated with me as being important looking back on the whole experience. And the first one is, if you're starting a small company, make sure you're working with doers. Now, doers are people who enjoy performing whatever the activity is that your business is doing. And if it's making games, then these are people who every day they want to do making games. They want to perform that activity. They're craftsmen. They're passionate. They're artistic, and it can be in a technical way with code or a more content way with art. but they want to do the activity that your business is built around. There's a tendency for a lot of people to want to be owners, and there's sort of a novelty and an excitement that comes from the idea of owning and operating a small business and being sort of near where the action's happening, and being able to go to cocktail parties and say, oh, I started a game company, we make games for the iPhone, stuff like that. And I find that often people with this owner uh, attribute don't really like to do work on a day-to-day basis. They don't actively contribute to what your company is doing, but they kind of want to run it and make decisions about it and control it. And really, they don't add a lot of value. And when you're a small team of 3 or 4 or 5 people, everyone has to add value, or you won't make it. It's just so competitive out there. And that kind of leads to the second ingredient is transparency. Now, some people out there start companies with people they've worked with for many years, and they can just trust each other implicitly. And you should never start a business with people that you don't trust. But oftentimes you might find yourself in a situation where you're working with someone new. They seem to have ability, they seem trustworthy, but you don't really know. And this is where transparency is so important. Those type of the owner people I was talking about before, often they will try to remove transparency. They'll try to control cash flow or hide revenue or hide information from the rest of the group so that they can have some semblance of control over what that group is doing. If people don't have all the information, then they need to come to the owner for that information, and they feel like they are in control and are setting the direction for things. But really, that doesn't work, especially when people are taking risks and their family's future is on the line. Everyone needs to be able to know what the cash situation is for the company. They need to know where the revenue is, how much more is coming in, how much, based on our current burn, how much longer are we going to last? And it's not that they are responsible for it, but if they need to know it, they should be able to go and find it. There's just so many things on this topic that could be said. Another one is if you find yourself where information is being hidden, where there's different conversations that you'll have with an individual that you wouldn't necessarily have with the entire group, and certain topics don't get brought up in the group because the belief is that it's not in their best interest, chances are there's some exploitation going on. Either you're being exploited or the group's being exploited. Either way, it's not good, and it's not good for the health of your organization. The third ingredient is to share responsibility. A lot of times there's a tendency to think, you know what, I am a great game developer and I'm just going to focus on what I do the best. And I'm going to do that, and that's what's going to add the most value. Well, in a small company, there are so many things that need to get done. And if you just focus on that one thing that you're good at, the company will fail. There's so many other things that need to be done. There's blog posts, there's getting builds out, there's running play tests with your friends, there's engaging the press, there's, talking to the fans, people on forums, just all different kinds of things that need to be done, setting up issue tracker software, doing planning, feature lists, all this kind of stuff. If you don't share that responsibility, even if someone else might technically own it, it's probably not going to get done, and your company's going to fail. The fourth ingredient would be focus. This is one thing that we failed on big time. We had these 3 different sort of silos of revenues, short term, medium term, long term. And as a group of 4 or 5 people, there's just no way to execute on all those strategies at once. And were I to do it all over again, I would have focused on the one thing that we were actually good at, which was game development, and just really focused on that and said, hey, we've got a 2-month burn. Let's do the best game that we can do, and see how it goes. And the last thing is really passion. And this is the ingredient that I think really differentiates indies from other game developers. As a small group of passionate individuals, you can infuse your product with a sense of passion and ownership that just really isn't possible with larger teams. And I think it's a competitive advantage. And unfortunately for us, the game we created is a good game. It's a cool turn-based physics puzzler, and I like it. It's got good production values. There's nothing to be ashamed of about it, but it's not the game that I would have made had I just had carte blanche and said, make the game that you're most excited about. It was really a game that was developed to be a business development asset to help sell contract work and services. And as a result, I don't think I'm quite as proud of the result as I would be if it had something I created out of my own passion and interest. And so that's really the final ingredient. Just have that passion. No matter what happens with your company, if you do finish that game and it's one that you're passionate about, you will always have that. No one can take that from you, and it'll always be something that you can share with your friends and family and everyone around you. So that's it. I'm already over time. I'd love to hear feedback from the panel, and I hope that by submitting this essay, I don't know if I'm one of like 100 that were submitted this week or the only one. I hope other people are inspired and share their own experience as well, so that we can all benefit from them. Thanks.
Yeah, it was one of two submissions actually. But if you guys have submissions, please send them your way. And thanks to Dan McDonald for sending in his audio essay. I guess I did ask for feedback from the panel, so we can talk about it briefly before we go on to Andy. The one thing that stuck out to me is that you should make the game that you're passionate about. We fell into that trap at Flashbang early on, where we thought we had to make a casual game in order to get enough money to make the kind of game that we wanted to make. And if you have enough of your own savings and your own time that you can commit to making a game, you should make the game that you want to make. You should not say, oh, we have to make this kind of game that's catered to this market in order to make the game that we want to make. If you have already carved out enough of your own time and money to make a game, and you have the resources to make a game, make the game you want to make.
Yeah.
That's kind of my to echo that. But yeah, Dan McDonald is awesome. And again, if you have an audio essay, just please email us at hello@TIG Radio, or just go to the Facebook page. So on that note, we're going to switch over to our community topic by ringing up Andy Moore, who I will let introduce himself in just 1 second here. Hey, Andy.
Hello.
So give us the briefest of introductions about who you are and what you do relative to game communities.
Oh, geez. Oh, well. Okay. Well, I first dipped my toes into the water with Fantastic Contraption. Yeah, I'm the community manager for that game now. I also do community management for Data Realms and a few other secret projects.
And Data Realms is Cortex Command.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And I'm also a game developer myself with a few games under my belt.
Sweet. So, I mean, when you say you manage communities, you're basically like the forum administrator / global moderator, and you have underneath you like the actual volunteer moderators, right?
That's probably one of the most sought after services I provide, but I do the whole community design and management. So I can sit down and set up a community and have somebody else, kind of follow in the steps that I lay out.
Okay.
But it can range anywhere to wiki administration, IRC, forums, talking to the press, pushing products at events, things like that.
Sweet. So the Cortex Command community is interesting to me because I've been friends with Dan for a number of years, and his community I would label it as unruly, or maybe poisoned. And you were basically brought in because Dan didn't have time to fix that. So I mean, can you talk about what it was like to kind of take over a community that had years of history behind it?
Yeah, this was actually it was the first project I picked up that hadn't that I wasn't involved with from early on. So it was the first time I ever walked into a situation where there already was a community kind of set up and fumbling along. Essentially, what had happened is Dan set up the forums and I guess just kind of left it for 6-7 years or so. And all the moderators, all the administrators, everything, they're all volunteers from the community. But it's kind of got a feel of being a 4chan branch or spinoff. I mean, that's the quality of conversation that seems to go on. But not to say that it's bad or negative. It's just its own beast that needs to be tamed.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed to me like a very young community, where it was a lot of people that were probably in high school that had a lot of spare time.
Yeah, well, and I mean, a lot of game players are like that, and a lot of the people that take part in communities are in that category. People with too much time in their hands, they don't have a job to go to. They reach out and they find people online to hang out with. And in pretty much every community, it's usually the early to mid-teen crowd. But what'll end up happening is you'll end up getting a a kind of a model figure in the community that people start taking after. And if you don't catch it early, you'll get one person that ends up trolling people, getting lulls, all that kind of stuff, and then soon everyone's doing it. And then stopping people from doing that is really difficult.
So yeah, I mean, how do you stop people from doing that?
With great difficulty, as it turns out. Because I mean, in the case of the Cortex Command community, I mean, it's a great community. They have excellent modding. There's a bunch of wonderful people there, but at the same time, it's not really open to new people. The community can't really grow from that. So it's mainly been an exercise in trying to convince the people that the way they're behaving is actually hurting the game and is actually going to, end up being worse off in the long run for the people involved.
So the one thing I'm actually kind of curious about with Cortex Command, I mean, I've seen the forums, but I don't have a pretty good sense of this, is how on topic is the community? Because one thing I tried to do with the FunMotion community is I staunchly refused to add an off-topic section where people would just talk about, oh, I had to do homework today and it sucked and this is what's on my iPod or whatever. Because I thought they'll be better served by going to like something awful or some other forum. But I mean, in the Cortex Command communities, how much do people expend energy into here's my new mod, here's my new level, here's my favorite Cortex Command level versus, just random internet bullshit?
Well, that's very game dependent, and the answer will vary depending on what game you're talking about. So, I mean, to answer the question in regards to the Cortex Command community, Cortex Command hasn't had a major update in quite a while, and Dan has a very silent dev cycle. He doesn't post a lot of updates. He doesn't pump things up. He doesn't hype new features or anything like that. It's just when the new version comes out, it comes out, and that's it. And it leaves a lot of spare time and speculation and frankly a lack of buzz between updates. So when a new update comes out, the forum will be very busy and very on topic. But in the in-between times, or now where it's been several months since a release, I'd say 90% of the traffic is off topic.
Okay.
But that's not so bad. I mean, you want to retain your customers. If people like your company, if people like your product, if they want to talk about their homework, why not talk about it on your site?
Yeah, I mean, in retrospect on FunMotion, I'm not sure if it was a mistake or not to do that. Though they actually found some way to do it. There was I updated vBulletin at one point, and it added like a group functionality, which is basically a user-made forum section that is like attached to a profile. So those people are basically talking about homework somewhere in the forum system. I don't even know where.
Yeah, well, I mean, having a dedicated off-topic section is also pretty good. Let's say in Fantastic Contraption, a lot of the forum talk and is very busy and very on topic because it's all very much user-generated content for that game. But there's an off-topic section where people get to discuss things and get to know each other on a much higher level than just how they defeated a level or some new level they made. So it's actually giving people an opportunity to connect and even make friends in a forum setting, which you can't really get if it's a strictly on-topic forum.
Yeah. And I think there is benefit to kind of siphoning off all the off-topic stuff that'll probably happen anyway. If you can get that all self-contained into the off-topic section, then by definition, then the on-topic section should, in theory, be more on-topic.
Yeah, and that as well. Yeah, but a mistake people make though is when they make 50 forums before the forum even starts. Like they make 50 subcategories and they make like 4 off-topic sections, and they only have 5 posts so far. And that can be just as deadly to a forum as having no off-topic section.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole ghost town approach to it.
Yeah, exactly. If you can log in 3 days later and see the same forum post on the front page, you don't need to make a new subforum. You only need to separate it out when it becomes a problem.
Yeah. So what kind of size are we looking at for the forums? I actually pulled the public numbers, like the Fantastic Contraption stats. There's 1 million members, 220,000 posts, and 8.5 thousand topics. And then the Cortex Command was 175,000 posts, 8.8 thousand topics, and 3.6 thousand members. And I actually thought that was crazy because that's on average 48 posts per member, which strikes me as very,
Yeah.
very high. And I'm sure like the number one person is 8,000 posts or whatever. But
Well, the stats on Fantastic Contraption are a little flawed. One of the way we got around the spam filters or spam bots, I should say, is you can't create a new forum account. You can only create a forum account from within Fantastic Contraption, the
yeah,
game itself.
yeah. I mean,
So
I basically surmised that the million members versus 220,000 posts was that the
yeah,
accounts were like actual Fantastic Contraption accounts required to play the game.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, when you get a community that is actually helping each other out with a dynamic product. So in Cortex Command, you have modding. In Fantastic Contraption, you have the user-generated content. There's like a feedback loop to that, where new content attracts new members, and people want to contribute to the community and give back. And it gets busier and busier, and once you get involved in a community like that, it's hard to leave because you start making friends and you start having an investment in the product. It's not a lot of the Steam forums are for games that have no content, no additional content. I mean, it's a one-off game product and that's it. Like you beat it and you're done. And a lot of the posts there in that kind of community setting will be someone looking for a specific bit of information, walk through help or just asking a general question to the devs. But once they get that information, they're going to leave, and they're not going to stick around
yeah.
unless there's an incentive to do so. And in most cases, there isn't.
So what's your advice for an independent game developer that is probably finishing up their game or has even released a game in terms of fostering a community?
Well, there's a few different ways you can handle community. It really depends on the size of your product and what you're trying to do with it. So my latest game that's going to be launched in a week or two now, called Steambirds, is it's going to hopefully end up being a very big community-driven, community content game. But for the initial launch, it's going to be very small, single-player only, um, like portal sold product. So I'm actually not doing any sort of community development for the initial launch. I don't want to have forums at this point. I don't want to have chat rooms or anything like that at this point. But the other half of the community stuff is maintaining a blog and generating buzz, talking to press and all that kind of stuff, and that's half of the equation as well, and something that everyone can do. So if anyone is making a game and is just finishing up, there's no harm in having a blog. We're not big game studios where we have to release something at a certain date with a certain advertising budget, and if we miss that or if we release too much information too early, then we might ruin our market. It's not really the case for us. So we have a big opportunity to just keep pushing information out there and not have any real negative impact on that.
Yeah. So what's your take on like how let's say Meat Boy's doing?
Hmm?
Like Tommy, do you guys have any kind of custom level stuff in there or not? Or like replay sharing?
Can't really say right now.
Speaking of releasing too much information too soon.
Yeah. Yeah, like we won't have like a modding community or anything like that, honestly, because I have no interest in like, yeah, I just like, yeah, we may be giving out a level editor, we may not, and if we do, yeah, just ask your friends if you have trouble, because don't ask me, because I won't answer. That's kind of my thought on the whole thing.
Well,
Yeah.
that's actually another reason for building community, and another game I'm working on, Protonaut. The exact reason why I made a level editor in the first place was because I didn't want to make the content myself. Like,
Yeah.
And when we look at Fantastic Contraption and it's got ongoing work on it. It's not a finished product by any means, but I can't talk about that. But it's almost all the new levels for Fantastic Contraption and Fantastic Contraption iPhone version, all that, all the levels were community made, and they're way better than any levels we could ever make.
Yeah, see, like, Meat Boy would be like the community would be more like walkthroughs on, hey, where's this bandage? How do I get to this warp zone? All that stuff. And as far as like any user shared stuff, what we're going, if we were to give again, because it's definitely not confirmed or anything like that. If we were to give anything, it would be an editor that's much more limited than the one that me and Ed use. So it's not like something like Cortex Command where you have like Lua scripts you can run in it or anything like that. It's very like it wouldn't produce like the same community because our level stuff is a lot like you could compare it to like Smash Brothers level editor. It's not something that's like what we're going to give is not something that's going to allow you to make an entirely new game like Braid's editor or something like that. It's just like play some tiles and play a level. That's just kind of it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't expect like games that don't have a lot of community interaction in game. So be it say Team Fortress where you're always interacting with other players even though there may not be any player generated content, or in Fantastic Contraption where there's no player to player contact but the community content drives it. I mean, you need something to tie a community together.
Mm-hmm.
And it can either be content like that, it can be multiplayer stuff, or it can even be ongoing development of the game. I mean, if you post a weekly dev update, you can rally a pretty big community around that. But as soon as the game launches and as soon as you finish working on it, and if there's nothing else there, then it's just going to be this cliff drop off of community members just fleeing.
Yeah, we don't so much like have like a dev log or anything like that. We'll on our blog or whatever. We'll post stuff like, hey, here's some pictures from the London DSI thing or whatever. But yeah, like as far as like a dev blog or anything like that, we really don't have anything like that. What we do is we have our Twitter and the blog, and we mainly use that just to announce news and give away comics. That's just kind of how we have a community and fans and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, at least you're doing something. I mean, that's more than what most developers do. It seems like.
Yeah. We realize it's like ours is more of like not so much community, like building a community, just like ours is more about just building like tons and tons of buzz, basically, and just
that's good.
Not so much introducing and bringing people into our development process or anything, because I'd have to post it, and I don't have time.
That's another common problem I found is a lot of the community design and management I do is for developers that don't want to interact with the public, either through lack of time, lack of interest, or just not being able to emotionally handle people just criticizing everything you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't see why anyone passes up the opportunity to completely push as far as they can in every direction on community stuff. That is, given certain limitations. But I do see lack of time, lack of money, lack of interest are definitely some things.
Yeah, so you actually write the blog post for Dan too, right?
Yeah, in theory.
Yeah, if you have stuff to write about it. I mean, he hasn't had a build since May, I think it is.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and I even wanted to do up some like just filler post to fill in the gaps, just to keep people coming back to the blog. But Dan also wants to approve every post, and he wants it to have the right feel and all this kind of stuff. And we actually decided to scrap that plan. So
crazy. I will hassle Dan on your behalf because we see him every now and then. He goes by the office for his naps.
Yeah, well, at GDC Austin, when you guys were doing your little show up on stage there, and you had you showed how at the end of the day you just had like 4 or 5 bullet points on what you accomplished.
Yeah.
And I tell people that the people I write blog posts for, I say, just give me a list like that, and I'll turn it into like a full page or two with pictures and everything else. But getting those bullet points from people is really hard sometimes.
Yeah, we might have to hire you for Rapid Safari stuff because we're not gonna. We only have 3 people now, so we're not gonna have a ton of time for
Yeah.
promotion.
Yeah, let's talk about a business deal on air here.
Yeah, let's just do it on air. Let's. Sweet. So yeah, thank you for your time. Do you have any parting thoughts on like the one line advice? Community is important, or anything like that.
Yeah, well, community is important. Everyone should do it. And if you don't have time or interest in doing it, hire someone like me to do it.
And what is your website if I wanted to contact you, sir?
My horrible, crappy website being redesigned right now, andymore.ca.
Cool. Well, thank you for your time, Andy, and we will bring you back
Thanks a lot.
after we talk to John for discussion and QA from the chat.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. All right. Later.
Bye.
See you later.
I'm just going to bring John in directly.
Do it.
If only we had some sort of actual radio studio where we could like stage these people and put them on hold.
Let's buy one tonight. Buy one.
By a radio studio. Hey, John.
Hey guys.
What's
Hey,
going
John.
on? So give us the briefest of introductions of who you are and what you have to do with community and games.
Oh man, I'm freaking out because I'm listening to the stream on your website and now I'm hearing it on Skype. So I've got this echo effect going on.
Yeah, it's time travel.
Close one. Okay. I'm with it. Basically, I'm the coffee dude for Wolfire. The goal going in when we were assembling a team was to try to give me all the tasks that I could take on to help the rest of the team just focus on development mainly, just to help out with the so they could just make the core of the game, and then I could handle everything else. And so I guess unlike Andy, I'm not really a designated community manager per se. I'm sort of like one part of a system, and Wolfire has been practicing open development sort of as a concerted group effort, and I don't really want to take full credit as the community manager because it's really the whole team's involved. So
And Wolfire is 4 people?
yeah.
Okay. What's the, it's kind of getting off topic from community, but what's the task breakdown or like role breakdown by person for the 4 people?
Well, David's our fearless leader, David Rosen. He's the guy that created Wolfire and made the first Ninja Rabbit fighting game, Lugaru. And he's been working on his own 3D engine since high school. So his role is basically just to own the engine. And Jeff and I do a lot to try to shield him from other tasks that might get in the way of that. And then Aubrey Sir is our lead artist, and we just want him to focus on art. And he's brilliant from 2D concept work to the 3D assets. He handles all of it. So David and Aubrey are kind of the core dev guys, and then Jeff and I have a lot of outside tasks that we try to help out with.
Rock on. So what's like the thing to me that strikes me as unusual, or not really unusual, I guess, but prominent in the community is that you actually do have a weekly alpha release, and you
Yeah.
do push really hard for pre-orders, even though the game release, could be a year or more away. How is that working out? I mean, how much feedback are you getting from players in the private alpha section on the forum, and how much of it are you actually listening to versus kind of entertaining?
Well, we basically try to listen to all of it, but we're not quite in the phase where we can actually iterate off of it yet. So we've been working on the past year on our core engine tech, and there are a lot of, the most common recommendations we get from people are about how the game could work. Are there going to be ranged weapons? Are there going to be this? Are there going to be that? And they often come up with a lot of very cool ideas, but we can't really say, with certainty, yes, this is in, no, that's not in, until we explore the space and, get further down the road. So,
How often do you guys actually post in like the private forum, or do you reply with like thanks for the idea, or you just kind of silently watch?
we guess don't have time to reply to every post, but we do want to keep up with the threads, and Jeff is actually super good at keeping track of the forums and what's going on. And whenever somebody has a problem that there's a solution to, we definitely, if you're not paying attention to those and not offering the helpful link or something useful, then that's bad. So we try to actively monitor everything we can.
So yeah, I pulled your forum stats just off like the forum page. So you have 2.7 thousand members, 83,000 posts, and then 3,300 topics, which is actually a 30 posts per user average, which also struck me as quite high. I mean, I'm sure a lot of those people are just one or two posts, and like they're made up for by the 5,000 post behemoths. But it seems
Yeah.
like you guys have a very, very active community. And I mean, I asked the same question of Andy, but how on topic is that community? Are most people showing off mods that they're working on, or like the stuff they've made in your editors, or are most people just sort of talking about stuff in games and the internet in general?
Jeff saying those stats are a little bit old. I'm actually because I'm in IRC right now, but we had an expansion and our PHP BB system's a little bit messed up. So I think our stats are a little bit higher than that. But anyway, it's hard to I don't know the exact demographic breakdown, but we basically get a full smattering of all kinds of topics. Some of them are really silly. And occasionally there's a random flame war that's off topic that'll break out, and that's unfortunate when it happens. But there's also a lot of cool stuff. People sharing Lugaru mods, people sharing custom houses that they're making in engine. People, one guy, Matto made a mod browser for Lugaru, which is really sweet. So people didn't have to manually shuffle folders around and stuff. So yeah, there's the full range going on.
So in terms of stuff outside of the scope of your own site, like the forum, you guys have a pretty strong presence on Facebook and I guess sort of Twitter by extension. I mean, you guys do the thing where you push Facebook stuff to Twitter, right? So
Yeah, we're sort of they're all synced up. And when we started out, we didn't really know what was going to work, and we figured, well, since all this stuff is free to try, we might as well attempt to use all of it. And then once we get further down the road, take a look and see what's most effective. So we've been trying to do everything we can find: the YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, ModDB, the active blog posts. We've actually managed to maintain a blog post a day for over a year now. So
wow.
that's been yeah.
I think we tried like 3 blog posts a week and got it down. I think our average was probably 1 a week.
Well, it's tricky. It's hard. I mean, it's easy to convince yourself not to make time for it, but it's also kind of important, and it's also the art of game development, I guess. There's so many different things going on at any one moment that if you just sit down and think about it a little bit, you can come up with something interesting to say, and share because every game developer, especially on the indie scene, has a different perspective about what's going on. So, and I think your community would find that really interesting. So,
Yeah. So one thing I think is unique to about your guys' posts is some of them are quite technical. Like you'll have a post that I'll actually see that kind of gets legs on Hacker News or Reddit, like the post about why you should use OpenGL versus DirectX, or why you should do this very technical thing like the voxelization of space.
yeah.
Do you track conversion? Like, do you know what the conversion rate from a visitor to an actual purchase of the pre-order is? Like, I mean, you're getting traffic off those posts, but do you know if you're actually getting, like, are you turning those Reddit visitors into actual customers, or is it more just like you're getting the programmers that come by, read your post, and kind of like, oh, well, that's not true, and then leave or whatever?
I think we're starting to get better about that data. I don't know if don't have the exact number on top of my head, but yeah, we were kind of hoping because we just did the NS2. Oh, Jeff says he's got the number. Probably generated about 200 sales.
From
Yeah.
the DirectX OpenGL post?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a pretty good chunk of change.
Yep.
Sweet.
And we tried to time it because we were doing the Natural Selection 2 organic indie pack, and we didn't really know if the post would take off the way it did. We got really lucky, and we had the nice community sharing it, and it was kind of a controversial topic, but we almost launched it really early, and we decided, well, wait, if we're going to do a promotion like this, we might as well save that post for when something spicy is going on, and then maybe they'll cross-pollinate a little bit, and I think that probably did happen.
So yeah, how often do you guys actually time your posts like that? Do you actually think, oh, we should try to converge a bunch of really good posts together, or do you just kind of post whatever comes to mind more often than not?
I'd like to claim that we're really strategic all the time, but in general, the posts that we launch and publish are written the same day that they go live. So we usually have a lot of ideas that we're brainstorming. We're thinking, oh, this would make a good post. Oh, that would make a good post. But we usually write it and publish it on the same day.
Yeah.
And sometimes the hottest posts are accidental. The internet's kind of a surprising place. Like Jeff one day randomly did a post about why you should initialize your memory, and there was some glitch when he loaded up the Overgrowth engine that on Mac, because it uses OpenGL for the operating system. It was just texturing his instant messengers and stuff onto the terrain, so he was looking at names in gibberish English, and it looked like the engine had gained consciousness or something. But anyway,
Oh God.
Reddit loved it, and it was kind of a cool screenshot to look at. So, and it was just a random accidental thing.
Yeah, actually, I saw that pop up. I forget the name of it, but it's basically like a fail blog, but for video game technology. When you forget to scale something and like the character models get crushed, and it showed up on there. I forget the name of it, but it's basically like a bunch of accidental stuff happening in games. So I mean,
Yep.
what's your advice for a game developer that's either a solo developer or maybe two or three or four people? I mean, you guys are pretty. I don't want to say top heavy because it's clearly working for you, but I mean, you spend most of your time on community stuff, and then it sounds like Jeff spends a lot of his time on it too. But you're only four people. Like, is your advice to get somebody to like do this stuff full time?
I think there are a lot of advantages to it, and I mean everybody's gonna carve out their own niche, but when you're small and you're trying to launch your own IP and nobody really knows that you exist, you want to try to do as many different things as you can to make your little spot on the internet as interesting and engaging as possible. And when people happen by your site, do you want them to just hit your homepage, not see anything going on, not have a live chat to talk to somebody, not have a place to get information, or do you want to try to reach out to them? And so we've been trying to basically reach out to everybody we possibly can. And I guess the Wolfire experiment isn't over yet, but there are a lot of optimistic trends so far. So I think we would definitely recommend that. I think there are a lot of excuses that indie developers make in their development process. Oh, if I make a good enough game, it'll speak for itself, and I can worry about all that other stuff later. But we think that's a little dangerous. That when you're tiny and you're trying to hang in there and make it work, that you can't afford to be cutting people off from all the exciting stuff that's going on. You need to be promoting yourself as actively as you can.
Yeah. So one thing I'm curious about is how close are pre-order sales to covering your burn rate right now? I mean, you don't have to share actual numbers, but sort of like, is it kind of most of your money is covered? Are you losing money, losing savings?
We're doing okay. I basically we have very small costs because Jeff and I are living at home, but yeah, we could continue this way for quite some time, but we're gonna have Overgrowth done before we would run out of money by a long shot. So
Sweet.
I think I would definitely recommend, and we have recommended actually the early pre-order strategy to other developers. It's been working great for the Natural Selection 2 guys at Unknown Worlds. They're awesome dudes. And Chris Hazard, who's working on the time traveling RTS Akron, he was actually asking me a little bit about it, and it's been treating him pretty well too. So it's just one of those things. It's actually a way to just open up and reach out to the community, because there are people that want to help you right away, and you might as well give them the opportunity to do it if they want to. As long as you keep it real, right? You don't want to say, "Hey, we've got this perfectly finished game. It's up for pre-order. It's going to run perfectly. It looks hot. It's going to, as long as you just tell them exactly who you are and show them what you've got, there's not really a way for a misunderstanding to occur."
Yeah, and you guys actually do a weekly alpha build, right? I mean, that to me that seems that would be hard to maintain as a developer. Or does it work out well for you guys to know that you have to get something out like every Monday or whatever it is?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a way to let the fans hold us accountable and show them what's going on. So that's kind of a motivator. there are certain times when our development schedule doesn't seem to line up exactly with Alpha Day when it rolls around. So sometimes we'll have a lot of hot stuff going on, but it just couldn't get finished off in time for the build. And so you have these, half-finished loose ends that can cause a little bit of frustration. But in general, we like it, and we're going to try to keep doing it. One thing that would make it easier is if we implement an auto updater, because right now people need to download the full builds each week. But
Yeah.
we'll get that figured out.
So what's your advice for like what has been most effective in terms of getting the most back and forth with your fans or just getting the most total number of fans? I mean, for us, it seems like Facebook is a lot more useful than Twitter or like an RSS feed or an email list or something.
Yeah, we thought Facebook, that was our big page initially, and we offered Lugaru for free over last year during the holidays for anybody that joined our Facebook page, and that drove a lot of fans there. And initially, it was kind of a barren wasteland. You had the ghost town phenomenon that's going to happen any page, you when you first started up. But after we seeded it with some fans, then now everything we post gets a few comments, and fans are asking us questions there, and we can get them help and information. So it's definitely useful. But in terms of fastest growing, best promotion tool, I'd say YouTube is our favorite device at the moment, because videos by their nature are a great way to convey information. You can show the gameplay footage, and you can do silly things or whatever. And we've seen pretty significant growth. I think our YouTube channel is going to catch our subscribership on our other pages. But then you also have to make a video, once a week or once every 2 weeks, and that can be a project too.
Yeah, I mean, how long does it take you to do like a tool overview video that has like you doing the voiceover, the text popping up, and then the actual like sped up video stuff? Is that like an 8-hour project?
Yeah, I'd say for a fully polished one, for a brand new feature, probably takes me about a day of work.
Yeah, it seems like it's worth it. I mean, it kind of sounds like I'm talking to the narrator in the video right now.
Yeah. Welcome to another Overgrowth Tech Demo. Today we're going to be talking about, that's how they
Sweet.
start.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. We're going to bring in Andy and then just field questions from the chat.
All right. Thanks for having me here, guys.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem.
thanks a lot, dude.
Thanks for sharing your insight. And you guys seem pretty well on the path. Oh, and for anybody listening who's going to the GDC, John will be talking at the Independent Game Summit about community and promotion.
Yep.
Hello.
Andy's returned. So,
Hey, Andy.
chat people or any of us, I guess, or you two, if you want to ask each other's questions. Steve has a question, or maybe he's just typing question. Oh, he wants you to rap. John,
Oh, God.
rap.
I haven't memorized the lyrics to the rap song that we released, but yeah, I could do the first. Let me tell you about a game called Overgrowth. Parkour and fighting, it's got them both. Overgrowth's core will be tried and true because it's inheriting the spirit of Lugaru. That's,
And then
that's how that one goes.
Sean wants it in Arnold's voice.
Oh, God. Let me tell you about the game called Overgrowth. Parkour and fighting, it's got them both.
Cool.
It's not bad.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So yeah, there's a question from the chat. Basically, once your game is finished, what do you think are the best ways of building buzz as opposed to, I mean, the answer I think is don't wait until you're finished.
I totally agree with that.
Like if you have waited until your game is finished, you probably already made a mistake.
That's,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, once your game launches, I mean, that's when everyone's going to flock to your site. That's when everyone's going to check out your blogs and your forum and everything. And if they're dead at that point, they're not going to hang around.
Yeah. And I think the fact that you can have a pre-orders for something that's not even a game yet. I need to rib on Overgrowth a little bit for not being a game, but I mean, the fact that you guys can do that without even a game there yet, it's just like a toolkit, is totally amazing, and I think speaks wonders to the fact that you should do this before your game's even started.
Yeah, you, like I said, you just want to keep it real. You don't want to pretend to have more than you do, and you just want to keep people informed with what's going on. But we've heard from other developers too that we're kind of laid back and just figure, well, when we launch, we'll make it happen. But the truth is, the internet and computers, the whole space is just moving so quickly that I think in the old days you were supposed to have you announce the game, that's one press wave. You have a preview phase, you have a review phase, and a launch. Now I don't think. I mean, I don't think there are any predefined rules right now. I think if you can come up with something new to promote your game that nobody else has done, that's going to be the thing that'll make you successful. And in the internet, on the internet, there's just so many different things you can do. So you want to keep an open mind and always be thinking a little bit about how you might do that.
There's another question about basically, I mean, for people that haven't heard about it, you guys did a pre-order bundle with Natural Selection guys, and then if you had reached 1,000 pre-order sales, you would dye your beard pink, which you have done but not yet posted. And somebody asked, how much do you think dyeing your beard actually helped Overgrowth sales?
Ooh, let me see if Jeff's still listening on IRC. Jeff, how many demands for a refund were we going to get if the beard didn't turn pink? The estimate Jeff gave me last time was about I think 20, something like that. There were definitely some. Oh no, Jeff says probably 400. So it's hard to estimate for sure, but I thought that might be a nice little flair to give people an incentive, and I of course had to honor it. So there should be a video going up on the blog tonight about that.
Yeah, Jeff says it's currently processing on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, I think anything like that actually helps. What people forget about journalists is that they're mostly interested in like story. You have to have a good story about who you are, why your game is special. And the story is not a list of bullet point features. It's not, really cool normal map terrains with detailed crap that does this and this and this. It's mostly, dyeing your beard pink is a much better story than, hey, 2 games for the price of 1.
Yeah, and
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry,
Go
Andy. Well, I was just going to say, as an indie developer, that's the angle you can approach, and you can relate to people directly in that way. If EA tried to do something like that as a giant company, it's harder to get that personal story.
Yeah, definitely. People don't want to go to your website and just read a sales pitch and then tune in next week for the next sales pitch.
Yeah. Someone pointed out that you should have some sort of gimmick like a Fez hat or a pink beard or Dan's 6-pack.
Yeah,
I was thinking about that. Yeah, I was thinking maybe I'd go in pajamas everywhere.
that's why we interviewed you and Dan about CrossFit, because I'd want the 6-pack if I could get it, but yeah, I think the pink beard's easier for me to achieve these days.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dan didn't do anything super special to get his body. He's just kind of a freak. I don't know if he's actually listening. Although he just got back from hiking. Yeah, I mean, any other questions from the chat? Or, I mean, do you guys have questions of each other? Andy of John or John of Andy?
Andy, how you been since I saw you in Austin?
Hey, pretty good. How about you?
Doing well.
So there's a question from the chat. To what extent do you think providing tools for modding adds longevity?
Oh man, a lot.
Do you have tons?
Yeah, I mean, fantastic contraption, Little Big Planet, and even our personal experience with Lugaru. David didn't really officially include formal modding tools, yet fans have gone in and done about 5 total conversions. So for Overgrowth, we figured from the beginning we're going to make some editor tools that we want to use to make our workflow easier. Let's bundle them with a game and get them out there to people and let them use it.
Yeah, and in Fantastic Contraption, like just to give you a frame of reference, it's almost 2 years old now. It's a Flash game you can play through in a few hours if you're good, and it still has, I don't know, like 1,000 new levels every day.
Wow.
Like that's a lot of content. Like even if you hired someone to build levels full time, you would never keep up with that.
Do you guys know, well, I mean, somebody knows, but do you know and can say the average number of plays per custom level? Like, are most of those 1,000 levels, like, are 999 of those just levels that somebody made and shared with their friend, like, over IM and will never be played again? I mean, how many levels kind of bubble up to where they're getting traffic from the forum or they're being highlighted by you as, like, the best level of the millennium? I mean, how many levels? I'm sure the bell curve is not bell curve, but like the nonlinear curve is very, very spiked at the top.
Yeah, well, like someone just said in chat, like even if 99% of them are crap, there's still going to be 10 levels a day that are good. And a good level can take you an hour or two, and you might even want to play with it and keep going. So even if a ton of it is bad, it's still a huge amount of content.
What do you guys have for content discovery tools? Like, can you rate a user level?
FC wasn't really designed for such a huge audience. We were completely caught by surprise by the reception it got, and the discovery tools are really poor. There's been 2 or 3 separate fan websites, and we ended up building an API for them so that they could make their own. And those have been very popular. And the next development, the next version of FC will have that integrated.
Nice. Yeah, what I think speaks volumes to the importance of modding is like World of Goo did not have any released tools or any released specs, but still like the fans reverse engineered the level format and made their own tools to make their own levels. I think that was a missed opportunity by those guys, but not that it really affected their success. But I mean, people, if a game is popular, people will want to put their own personal stamp on it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Sean is pointing out that he hasn't noticed many community projects posted on the Overgrowth blog. Is there a reason for that? I think he's talking about tools that are or projects that are being made with your tool set.
Gotcha. Maybe there hasn't been a lot going on right now, but there are definitely a few fan-made cities that have been made. We're kind of in a maybe a little bit of a lull while our scripting system gets put in, and once that happens, then the gameplay we'll be able to well, it'll start happening. Dave will be writing the core of it, but there will be elements that the fans can tailor. And right now, the cities that have been made are basically aesthetic, but you don't have the full level editing system implemented yet, so you can turn it into a level. But I don't know. I would disagree that there's not a lot going on. That I think actually is
Cool.
quite a few things in the works.
There's another question. I guess it's probably aimed at David, but are you guys going to do more design videos like the ones you did, like the design tour videos?
Yeah, that's a workflow problem. David definitely has some ideas on that and wants to do more. And people ask me on our live chat widget all the time if he will do more. And yes, he will, but he's got to prioritize his time. And right now, he wants to get Overgrowth moving. So
Yeah.
he's working on that scripting system.
Somebody else asked a question if we're going to do a similar level editor for Raptor Safari HD. The answer is probably not because we're so integrated with Unity. We'd have to do a lot of work to kind of expose that abstraction.
Well, I think this is a great example of what a good community can do. I mean, we have people obsessed with seeing the next episode by Wolfire. So it's, even as a TV show, it's good.
Yeah. I mean, I think Wolfire will be pointed to as an example of this is what you need to do if you want to get a ton of buzz from day one.
Knock on wood, we're still moving along, and it's like I said, we have a lot of optimistic signs so far, but we're not going to be complacent. And launching is interesting. We've actually considered going dark for a little bit towards the end.
Yeah.
And just seeing if that might be an effective buzz tool, because we've been reaching out in every single way, trying to be open in all these avenues, but yeah, we might change it up at the end and try something a little different. But it's always good to put things in perspective. One of our heroes, I mean, Ron Carmel is pretty good at actively promoting and I mean, he's basically been in the pilot seat in terms of successfully marketing and launching his game. So we're trying to look at his moves and see what we can learn from him as we move along. But I appreciate you guys saying that.
Yeah, I mean, Ron's pretty open. You can just email him and ask him.
Yep.
Yeah, Ron's awesome. So we have like 30 seconds left of the show. I mean, parting thoughts in terms of community? Anybody?
We are indies. We're very flexible, very agile. Try different things. Find out what works for you. Don't just sit there and assume it'll all work out.
Nice.
Good one. Good one.
Yeah.
Over to you,
I
John.
I guess I would say don't make excuses not to reach out to people, because it's a very important part of the process. Whether it's your community, your peers, press people, make time, and it is substantially worth it. So.
Cool. Well, thank you guys for your time. Special thanks to our guests, Andy Moore and John Graham. Your TIG Radio hosts are Matthew Wegner, Ben Reese, and Tommy Reffinis. TIG Radio theme song by Danny Baranowski. TIG Radio website by Kyle Pulver. TIG Radio is proudly sponsored by absolutely nobody. See you next week.